Welcome back to the Persona 1 experience. And today we're going to finish at Persona 1 and finally get this game done. It's been a long time coming, and guess what? From here on out, this game gets a lot more annoying. So I hope you have fun with me complaining. I'm half joking, but the first dungeon in this video sucked to get through. Well, let's start. Making it out of the subway, we enter the second ward of Mikage show. And it's a total tone shift. Everything here is super shady and run down. The complete opposite to the other side of the town, heading into the black market, which is literally a reskinned Sun Mall. We buy some items and I tried to walk into this room and got locked out by somebody saying his queen doesn't want anyone coming in. Alright. When I tried to leave the place, I got warped to the other side of the mall, and for a few minutes I had to leave for the other exits like I was in denial. But yup. We're locked in. After wandering around and not knowing what to do, and hearing multiple people talk about the queen and her palace, I walk into the Peace Diner and see a cutscene where all the customers in the diner start harping on about the queen and how powerful she is. Turns out her full title is the Harem Queen, and we're not going to be able to leave the black market until we put a stop to her. Traveling back to the door that was previously blocked by the simp, we enter Kama Palace. Before I say anything else, let me just say, this dungeon sucked the fattest ass you could ever suck. I wanted to tear my hair out so much when I was traveling through here. How it works is that to traverse and make your way down to the boss room, you have to sink through these holes to travel down. Basically, you have to find the correct pattern of holes to make it to the boss room. Problem was that once I made it to floor 7, I got lost for a good hour. I went up, I went down, I looked everywhere. All the while I had to deal with some super annoying enemies that constantly beat me down with charm and other things. To be fair, it was my fault, since the only persona I had to use was Pyrojack, but god, these enemies sucked. This dungeon made me hate charm. God, it sucks. Rant aside, I finally figured out where to go by using a guide. Walking into the boss room on floor 10, we finally meet the Harem Queen, who is actually Chisato, Yusuke's girlfriend. But something's up with Chisato's face. She's got these big ol' moles on her face. It turns out, when Chisato got kidnapped by Aki, she was told that she was looking for someone who could use a mirror that could grant the person any wish they wanted. And the person happened to be Chisato. When Maki mentions that Yusuke got hurt, she shows a flash of concern but quickly buries it, revealing she was only dating Yusuke to get back at Maki. Knowing Yusuke liked Maki more, she wanted to steal him from her, to make Maki jealous. Chisato basically drones on and on about how she thinks she was prettier, better of an artist, and more talented when compared to Maki. Then, finally, after all that Bachelor Love Island tier drama, Mark tells her the cold hard truth. Her paintings suck. Balls. Chisato, offended by him, delivers the worst punishment she could ever ask to the mirror to warp us back to the black market. So I had to trek through the entire dungeon again. And guess what? I got lost at the exact same point again, and spent another hour wandering through the dungeon, not knowing where the hell to go. But again, after following the guide, I managed to make it back to Chisato. We walk in on Chisato examining her face. It looks like it's gotten worse. It seems like the more wishes she makes, the more her face becomes uglier, with more moles and more blue slime, I guess, on her face. Chisato asks us a question. Which painting is better? Hers or Maki's? With that, we're given the prompt. Maki's painting or Chisato's? Like most of the other choices, choosing the wrong one will lead you on the path to the bad ending. So choose Maki's painting if you want the good ending. It's also fun to finally stick it to Chisato. Pissed off at this, she turns Mark, Nanjo, and Brown to stone. Right as she's about to turn me and Maki to stone, Aki shows up, offering to fix Chisato's face in return for beating us up. Chisato instantly accepts the offer, asking the mirror to grant her the strongest power found in it. Unfortunately, I guess the mirror was pretty weak, because I bodied her. It just boiled down to Maki using ice and me using my gun on her. It was a really easy boss fight. Chisato was a bit of a damage sponge like the rest of the bosses, but that's literally all she is. After Chisato's really sad loss to 2 kids carrying level 5 personas, Aki reveals she wasn't even gonna heal her anyways. It seems Chisato was just a pawn in their scheme and they didn't care if she won or lost. Then, like always, after delivering an insult, Aki dips out of Kama Palace. Chisato is left distraught and broken, not knowing what to do. Maki offers to find Aki, saying she still likes Chisato even who she is now, complimenting her and saying how she can see why Yusuke likes her. Chisato denies this, saying how the real her isn't great. The reason why she was so jealous of Maki was that she could be herself. In Chisato's case, she had to amplify attributes of herself for people to notice her. After a couple more heart-to-heart dialogue is exchanged, the mirror reacts to Chisato's wish to see Yusuke again, and he's teleported to the chamber. Yusuke tells Chisato he accepts her for who she is, and doesn't care what she looks like, telling her he's not a perfect person either, and if she's just honest with herself, that's fun by him, telling her that he loves her. Right as he says it, the mirror breaks, healing Chisato's face, and turning the rest of the party back to normal. This was a cool little moment in the game. It was nice seeing Yusuke still accept Chisato after what she looks like and what she's done. I guess it shows how much of a good guy he is. After all that, we're told by Chisato that Pandora lives in a castle made by Aki, which is our next goal. And with that, we have to head out of Kama Palace from the 10th floor. But I actually got out of there quickly, at least compared to the other 2 times I was in there. After that trauma-inducing experience, I desperately needed new personas. It was getting really bad. So after buying more items, I went hunting for personas. To make things go smoother, I did follow a guide, and I do recommend following one if you want to. It makes things go a lot faster, which made my party a lot stronger. I mean, level 5 to level 25 is a pretty big climb. After like 3 hours of gathering personas and grinding, we finally go to Gondori's castle. Walking in, we find Aki, being a little shit as usual, who says we can't enter unless we get the help from someone in the forest, but that certain someone is too scared to help. And after that, she activates something on the pillar and walks through the doors, locking behind her. Ninjo, noticing that she placed something on the pillar to activate the doors, figures the next step is to find another one to enter the castle. Maki adds to this, saying it's gotta be in the lost the lost forest. Since Aki let it slip that someone in the forest could help us. Backtracking all the way back to the normal part of the town, through the subway, we get to the Lost Forest. The Lost Forest is probably, in my opinion, the best dungeon in the game. It's got a nice aesthetic. I really like the pink cherry blossom-like trees. The chill music, it's probably playing in the background right now. And it's pretty easy and short, which is a nice break from the last dungeon. The gimmick of this dungeon is that it's basically a massive hedge maze, complete with tiles that turn you around. I got through pretty quickly, at least compared to Kama Palace, and got to the boss room, this cool little gingerbread house. Walking in, we finally meet the girl in white, the one that called lightning bolts on us in the beginning. Her name's Mai, and she's got the item we need to enter the castle, a half-moon shaped compact. Maki asks her if she's friends with Aki, since they look a lot alike. Mai isn't saying that Aki is the bad version of her. How Aki was created is that one day when Mai was lonely, Kandori came up to her and outpopped Mai from within her, walking away with Kandori. Aki is basically the yin to Mai's yang, in colors and because they make up a one whole of a person, with their good and bad aspects of themselves. Before Aki was created, Mai used the full power of the compact to grant her wishes. But when Aki was formed, she broke the compact in half, splitting the power between them, with Aki using hers to do bad things. The reason why Mai is hiding is because her wishes get cancelled out since the compact was broken in half. When we ask Mai to use her part of the compact, she refuses, saying that's what Kandori wants. Well, I guess we just have to ignore her, because we have to convince her to stop hiding from Kandori. Again, like the other options, this will affect the ending. Choose the bad options and you enter an optional boss fight. If you choose right in the multiple choice, you'll get Mai's compact, and you'll be able to walk out safely from the Lost Forest. So, for the right options, choose stop hiding, for everyone's sake, for the second one, and to find my reason, for the final one. After that, Mai gives us her compact, and off to Mana Castle we go. Walking in, we use the half-moon compact Mai gave us, and whoops, I guess Kandori has it now. But at least the doors are open. Mana Castle was a challenge. For one thing, I got my ass handed to me on the first floor, so I walked out and grinded for like 5 frickin' hours. Though even after it was still an annoying dungeon. Mana Castle, like the Lost Forest, is a maze. You have to find the right path to get to Kandori. In this dungeon I wandered for a long time, so to get by it, I had to resort to a guide. This dungeon is also where I got so sick of the battle theme. So I played my own music and I did for all the other dungeons. Finally, after like 2 hours, I made it to the boss room. We find Reiji, yeah, the alpha male we saw at the school, collapsed on the floor. I guess he tried to fight Kandori before us and got his ass kicked. Kandori then gloats to us about how dumb we are, the usual villain type stuff. And with the 2 compacts in hand, he makes a mirror and uses the 2 compacts to form a new palace in the real world, called Diva Yuga. Since Kandori now has a completed compact, he doesn't need the Diva system, since they act as one themselves. Kandori then reveals his ultimate plan, to annihilate humanity. Pretty generic, but it works. He then zaps an android mark and leaves for the real world, all without sticking this dungeon's boss, Sarva, on us. Sarva was a bit challenging, but that was mainly because I ran out of heals. So I had to use Dia on my party. If it weren't for that, he wouldn't be really challenging. Just use fire and wind base attacks and you'll be fine, for the most part. After the boss fight, we needed to figure out a way to get back to the real world. Maki figures that a way to get back could be the Haunted Mansion, since there were rumors of people being spirited away there. Kind of a weird grasp for straws, but it's also where the Civic Building would be in the real world. We then leave, promising to return to bring Reiji back. This is also the last time we see Reiji, as he's only seen in the epilogue cutscene. So much for going back and saving him, I guess. Sorry, man. We make our way over to the Haunted Mansion, which is just chilling next to the Black Market. The Haunted Mansion is a really forgettable dungeon. I literally forgot it was in the game, pretty much up until now that I'm writing this. Probably because it's in the middle of two big ones, Mana Castle and Deva Yuga. And also because it's really easy in like 10 to 15 minutes if you know where to go. Like literally in my notes, which was 6 pages long, I wrote nothing about this. Jokes aside, the Haunted Mansion was really straightforward. All you gotta do is get to the 3rd floor of the dungeon. There ain't even a boss, technically. When I got to the 3rd floor and went to travel into the boss room, we hear someone crying to herself about how she lost her daughter Maki. But alternate universe Maki mentions that she never had a mom since she's from this world. Well, whatever it is, we gotta go check it out. Opening the door, we find a demon talking to us, beckoning for Maki to come to her. So like always, we're left with a choice. Do we lower our weapons? Or do we disregard what she said and attack her? You probably know the correct choice by all the other options. I chose to not attack her. Turns out the demon is actually Maki's mom, Setsuko in the real world, since the alternate world's Maki doesn't have one. She somehow got here when she dreamed of Maki getting lost in the Haunted Mansion, which is something that happened when she was little. After Nanjo plot dumps to her about our entire adventure, I guess, the rift between the alternate world and the real world is fading. And to close it, someone needs to stay behind. Setsuko volunteers and we enter the portal to go back to the real world, with us promising her that we'd save the real Maki and come back for her. But traveling through the portal, we arrive where the whole thing started, the Diva System control room. After the group gets their bearings, we find Dr. Nikolai. Yeah, remember this dude? Well, he's speaking some devil type stuff, talking about judgment and annihilation and stuff like that. Pandora appears and tells us that the mirror has control over everyone on Earth. He can even tell them to kill each other if he wanted. He even has control over us to a degree. After telling us his plan of having everyone kill each other, for some reason, he dips out of there, Aki style. Walking out of the Diva control room, we actually find ourselves inside Deva Yuga, which caught me by surprise. Deva Yuga, for me at least, wasn't incredibly annoying. Probably because I wasn't listening to the battle theme. God, no other game has made me hate the battle theme like this game. But it was still tough nonetheless. It's a big dungeon, with paths that don't lead you to the boss room, challenging enemies, and it'll take you an hour or two to get through it all. Sure, it was annoying at times, with the constant every 5-second encounters, but I didn't end up hating it or anything. Anyways, getting up to the final floor, floor 6, we have an actual puzzle, this time before the boss. It's a simple floor tile puzzle. The floor tiles into a plus sign or a cross, and the boss room will open up. Walking in, we find Kandori just chilling and drinking some tea, but this time he's more sullen and bored. For one thing, he basically gets rid of Aki and tells her to go piss off in the other room. He tells us he won't even do anything to us. He asks us what we're living for, since he figures everyone needs a goal to work towards. He asks us this since he accomplished his dream of becoming God and now doesn't feel anything. He feels empty with himself now that everything is said and done. Heck, he even tells us the reason why he let us come to him, to ask us what we live for. Everyone states their reasons. We have a choice, and I think you know what it is. And after insulting him for a bit, we had Kandori back up, and we finally get to fight him. Kandori has 2 phases. His first form was incredibly easy. All you have to do is just use your guns and lightning and earth spells, which will quickly take him down to his second form. In his second form, Kandori for some reason is taken over by this guy named Nyarlathotep, who's only seen here and never again in the entire game, which is a shame, since he's got a really cool backstory. He's known as the god with 1,000 faces and was made by H.P. Lovecraft in the 1920s. But I heard he comes back in Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, so maybe we'll see a lot more of him. Anyways, now Kandori, with the power given to him by Nyarlathotep, is now known as God Kandori. Real creative, guys. And geez, is he a massive step up from Phase 1 Kandori. I actually lost to this guy, which was the first time I lost to a boss since Kandori's bodyguard. Yeah, remember that guy? He's got some really annoying attacks, like a multi-hit one and one that just kills one of your party members. On the second try, I developed a real strategy. When my party got too damaged, I would step back and heal them. And I used Danjo as a primary healer and buffer, with the others using super effective magic like Nuke, Grab, and Blast and guns to take down Pandora. To save revives, I would just use the normal ones, and save the full ones for when I really needed them. The fight was still challenging, but it flowed so much better than my first attempt. With the fight over, Pandora lays on the floor, finally defeated. He's not angry, but content and a little bit melancholic, I suppose. In his dying breath, he tells us the big bombshell about the world and alternate Maki. It turns out it's not an alternate world at all. It's the ideal world created by the real Maki. And the Maki we've been traveling with has actually been the ideal version the real Maki wants to be. Aki and Mai are also parts of Maki, being the evil and innocent parts of herself. Their names even come from some of the letters that form the name Maki. It also explains why Yosuke and Chisato were transported to Maki's ideal world. Maki didn't want the ideal versions of them, she wanted their real selves. How the world was created was that when the Diva system was being made, Maki's heart synchronized with the system, creating the ideal world, with Maya as a caretaker. He even tells us the real Maki is in a room inside Deva Yuga. All of this information is too much for the ideal Maki, since, she just learned she's not a real person, and goes into denial, leaving the room. Pandora gives us his last words. Do you find the real Maki and stop her from going down the path you went down? And with that, passes away. Going through Deva Yuga, we find Maki's room pretty quickly. Walking in, we find Maki, three Makis more like. The ideal Maki, the real Maki on the hospital bed, and Aki. Before I start talking about what happens in this part of the game, I'm sorry if it's confusing. So much plot is talked about in this scene. Okay, so basically, the fake Maki is in denial of her fakeness and believes she's a real person, since she, has thoughts, memories, and emotions. She also believes she caused all of the misfortunes to happen to the town. And Aki, being the negative and malicious side of Maki, wishes for everyone to disappear, and in her own despair, disappears herself, going into what I assume is the real Maki's heart. Cause this is the last time we see her. Yeah, it's not very climactic. Fake Maki also wishes this, going back into the real Maki's heart, and escapes back into the ideal world. After an argument of what to do next between Mark and Nanjo, Kondora's mirror reacts, showing us the Diva system being stolen. Damn it. The real Maki must have realized what we were doing and stole the system, preventing us from getting back into the ideal world and saving her. But we still have Kondora's mirror, so we can just make a wish and shit. But from the shattered mirror, we find the fake Maki's compact, and we notice the real Maki has her own compact on her. The real compact has a mirror, however, the fake one doesn't, preventing us from going back. So we had to search for it. Before finding it, however, I get the biggest revelation of the entire game, the origin to Brown's nickname. And the reason why he's called Brown is he shit his pants when he was in middle school. Yeah, that's literally it. Very sad. It wasn't very hard finding the mirror. It's literally in the classroom out of the cutscene's camera view. With the two compacts, we travel back to the fake world. We arrive in the Lost Forest with Setsuko greeting us. After uniting, we hear Mai cry out from within the dungeon. Setsuko, wanting to check it out, joins us. And with that, we re-enter the Lost Forest. This time Maki isn't with us, so it's just me and the boys. So it's a bit more challenging now that there's only 4 party members. But it's completely doable. There's even enemies you can completely destroy. There's also a new part of the dungeon, the Inner Lost Forest. But it's pretty much the same thing from the first time, just traverse the maze and make it to the next story beat. Walking into the fake room, we find Maki hiding away on a bed wearing a mask, which I guess is a representation of her hiding herself away from others. Basically, to escape the stress from learning the real version of herself was the villain the entire time. She fled to the Lost Forest to just be depressed, I guess. But after we give her a pep talk about accepting herself, Maki comes to see herself as a created person from someone's thoughts of herself and sees it wasn't truly herself that was causing all this trouble. It was the real her doing it, as weird as that sounds to say. With Maki back in the group, we head out of the dungeon and stop for armor and stuff like that, and dripped my team, cause after the Lost Forest and Deva Yuga, I was rolling in money. Persona 1's money per battle rate was so broken at the end of the game I had a whopping 3 million. After dropping a crap ton of money, we go back to the Ilea shrine and get another cutscene from Philemon, who tells us to venture into Ilea cavern behind the shrine and find the real Maki's soul and comfort it. But only those who have been chosen can enter, meaning, oh god, it's just me and Maki. Ilea cavern was an annoying dungeon. Since it's just me and Maki, the enemies hit a lot harder. There were these mask guys where say we missed or they moved first, it was all over. I died a couple times in the dungeon, mostly to the mask guys. But I also died to my own dumb mistakes too. I did have some help. Sometimes, usually when something got tough, a blue light would come out and decimate the enemies. I don't know what caused it, but it was still really helpful. Descending down all 8 floors, we walk into a room to find myself playing an arcade machine. After the confusion is over, it seems the other me knows everything about what's happened so far. He basically starts waxing on and on again about how much of a good person I am, and recalls all the choices I made throughout the game. The ones that affected the ending and how many ultimate personas I'm able to get. After he's done saying how much of a good guy I am, he gives us the items used in fusing the ultimate personas. All you have to do is include the right item during the right spell cards being fused, and you'll get one of them. And that's basically it for your other self. Kinda anticlimactic, but it's still cool we got to see him. Going down to the final floor, the 9th floor, we find the soul of the real Maki, lost in the sea of ever souls. She expresses her sadness of not being like her ideal self, wishing that the fake Maki was the real one, so that the real one could have never been born. It's some pretty negative stuff. The fake Maki tries to talk some sense to the real Maki, but nothing really comes from it. She does, however, give us the blue compact, which will get us into the final dungeon of the game, to take on Pandora, the final boss of the game, which is the personification of the bad parts of Maki, who also was the part of Maki that stole the Diva system. After going back up, we travel to the school, where the game started. Walking around the school, it seems everybody's gone. I guess since we changed the fake world so much, it caused all the fake students to disappear. We make our way up to the library, where that big door was. We meet Chisato and Yosuke there, and after Maki and Chisato make amends, we put the 3 compacts into place and open the door to a video world. A video world was an experience all on its own. For one thing, before I even talk about it, I have literally 10 hours of footage of it. This thing was a beast. It consists of about 8 big maze-like rooms that you traverse to get where Pandora is, and getting there was the most time-consuming thing ever. It started out fine, but a couple rooms in it started getting harder and harder and harder. After a few hours, I eventually got all the way to Pandora. Pandora is this huge, disgusting cocoon-like thing with Maki head.png slapped on it, which was kinda weird. Pandora, being the pure evil side of Maki, wants to use the Diva system to destroy everything, and they can't let that happen. So we stand up and get obliterated 10 minutes into the fight. Yeah, Pandora was hands down the hardest boss in the game, making God Gondori look like he was as hard as a Chisato fight, which is pretty much nothing to say, cause Chisato was a walk in the park. I think I died to Pandora like 10 times in total. After getting killed a few times, I had to turn to the greatest source of information in the world, game facts. I learned that I could get a persona called Dotohime, who could counter Pandora's annoying ice attack, which decimated my party the first time. And it's not helping. Great. After getting killed multiple times, I decided I had to bite the bullet and get Boyo's ultimate persona, Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra has a spell tailor-made for fighting Pandora, Hieroglyphia. It's a spell that no matter what Pandora does, it'll still shred through her. So after getting a ton of spell cards in the Mikage ruins and fusing them to get Amun-Ra, and grinding them up for Hieroglyphia, I was finally ready to take on Pandora. First, there's her cocoon phase, where all you gotta do is have someone cast Water Wall every 3 turns with Otohime, and then just use guns and Hieroglyphia to take it down. Her second phase is way more of a challenge. Pandora can swap between a red magic defense and blue physical defense form. But to be honest, just use physical attacks at all times, cause she can bait you with her blue form and swap back to her red form immediately after. But if you have Amun-Ra, just use Hieroglyphia and have the other members use physical attacks, water wall, and heals. We ran into some really close calls from Pandora's really annoying butterfly attack, but we pulled through and beat her, and it felt so good. With Pandora beaten and absorbed back into the real Maki, it's time for the fake Maki to go back into the real Maki. Maki stops us. thanking us for what we've done, and leaves Boyo with a kiss on the cheek. We then get a cutscene showing Philemon for the final time, congratulating us for finding our true selves, taking off his own mask, symbolizing himself opening up, revealing his own real self. The game ends with you, your friends, and the real Maki, who's finally found herself after getting out of the hospital, going to an amusement park and just living their lives as teenagers. We also get these cool little pieces of text detailing what each character did after the game's events. But for Boyos, that's up to us to decide on what his future holds. Overall, did I enjoy Persona 1? Sort of. I really enjoyed the theming of it all. I liked the message of finding yourself, and accepting that in order to make yourself, you have to have good and bad aspects to your personality. That's what makes up who you are. With the butterfly poem inspiring what would become the real world and the fake world, and the thought of asking yourself if the you put out to the world was the real you. I thought this aspect of the game was really cool. I also liked the characters. I liked how Brown decides to stop pretending to be someone he's not, and tells himself that he wants to be who he truly is. I liked how Maki is explored, showing the good and bad sides of her. I liked Philemon. I thought he was a pretty cool concept. But there's also some flaws with it too. The gameplay was kinda lacking. While the actual combat and Persona system is completely fine and passable, the dungeons were a bit Some were fine, like the Lost Forest, while others, most specifically being Kama Palace, were long, boring, and confusing slogs that set the game back. Though this was backed by the completely abysmal encounter rates. I swear every 10 seconds was another encounter, which made dungeons like Kama Palace, Deva Yuga, and the video world slow like molasses. Pandora was a really generic villain. He was basically evil for the sake of being evil, which is fine, since he wasn't the true villain, but I wish he had more of a defined backstory and personality. I also found the music pretty annoying at sometimes. The main battle theme got so waiting on my ears at the end, that for a video world and Deva Yuga, 2 huge dungeons, I just didn't listen to it, cause I was so tired of it. They also tried to go in the style of Persona 3 when remaking the soundtrack, so it was kinda jarring hearing full vocals when walking around town in a PS1 game. If I were to give it a rating, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed the theming, concepts, and characters, but the dungeons, for the most part, weigh it down from getting anything higher. It was a good start for the series that would eventually take over their parent series. And it's nice seeing the incredibly humble origins for where the Persona series all started. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if you want to play this game, go ahead, but it's by no means essential. If you want to skip it, that's completely fine too. And that was Persona 1. Jeez. This video was a project, to say the least. Overall, that was 6 months of really off and on recording, playing, and editing. My god. I don't know when I'll play through Persona 2 and its sequel. Probably not anytime soon, but it'll happen sometime. I'm just doing these videos for a hobby, so I might do something else before the Persona 2 Innocent Sin video. You can probably tell by the structure that this was pretty heavily inspired by Marsh's SMT videos. I really enjoyed listening to them during walks and stuff like that, so I decided that I'd take my own crack at one. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if I ever get to Persona 3, Jesus Christ, that video is gonna be like 2 hours long. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!